look closely at history in the making. This is the first legally authorized government coin struck to commemorate both the World Trade Center and the new Freedom Tower being erected in its place. It's the only silver dollar clad with 100 mil of .999 pure silver recovered from ground zero. Repeat, the pure silver that covers every gleaming surface of this magnificent September.
Change your heart. Look around you. Change your heart. It will astound you. And I need your loving like the sunshine. And everybody's gotta learn sometime. Everybody's gotta learn sometime. Everybody's gotta learn sometime. Change your heart and look around you. Change your heart, it will astound you. I need your loving like the sunshine. And everybody's gotta learn sometime. Everybody's gotta learn sometime.
In the 4 years since September 11th, 2001, many unanswered questions remain unresolved. Many of these questions were originally raised by the Family Steering Committee to the 9/11 Commission, but were either ignored or inadequately explained by the Commission. Additionally, the proliferation of independent research and analysis has uncovered evidence and facts that have yielded many additional questions, which have been widely speculated on by the general public, yielding even more compelling and disturbing lines of questioning that also remain unresolved to this day. The failure by mainstream journalists to investigate these issues has spawned a phenomenon of independent citizens nationwide to take on the daunting task of keeping these issues alive. Many have taken it upon themselves to formulate answers and construct theories that may answer some of these issues. Others have taken to the streets to demand that these issues receive the attention that they deserve. Others still have chosen to document and widely disseminate these questions online, in the hope of stimulating enough widespread interest from the general population to force a truly independent but formal investigation. Unfortunately, 4 years after the fact, the 9/11 community has only achieved limited success. And with new revelations of facts about the attacks of those days continuing to become known to us, the list of unknown questions continues to grow as well. The task of documenting these unanswered questions is a daunting one. The research now available to us covers a broad range of issues, and the evidence and body of knowledge has become so voluminous, covering such a broad range of issues, that many of the most important research has become lost in the blizzard of independent theories that now exist. The following film attempts to consolidate these facts into as compact a presentation as possible. Any one of the facts contained herein could be explored, expanded upon, debated, and studied at length. But in the interests of time, this film is intended as a quick overview of the most relevant issues at hand. In the late 1990s, an independent neoconservative think tank, the Project for the New American Century, borrowed many of its ideas and mandates from a book, The Grand Chessboard by Jimmy Carter's National Security Advisor, Zbigniew Brzezinski. In their mandate, PNAC outlined an ambitious strategy for American imperialism in the 21st century. Members of PNAC included many prominent members of the Republican Party, as well as present and former members of the Bush administration, including Richard Armitage, William Bennett, Jeb Bush, Dick Cheney, Scooter Libby, Richard Pearl, John Bolton, James Woolsey, Douglas Faith, Donald Rumsfeld, and Paul Wolfowitz. In many of PNAC's public documents and open letters, they called for the preservation and expansion of American hegemony through several initiatives, including controlling the world's strategic energy reserves, the invasion of Iraq, control of Eurasia and the strategic Caspian Sea basin, as well as proposing vast increases in American military and intelligence spending. PNAC further speculated that the process of transformation is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. 9 months after these influential members of PNAC rose to power in the Bush administration, America experienced its new Pearl Harbor, and most of PNAC's designs for the invasion of Iraq, control of Eurasia, increases in defense and intelligence spending has come to pass. Is this a coincidence, or was this by design? In late 2000, a highly contested presidential election took place in Florida. Evidence exists that PNAC member Jeb Bush, governor of Florida and brother to President George Bush, ordered the disenfranchisement of thousands of African American voters. Katherine Harris ordered 57,000 ex-felons who are prohibited from voting by state law to be removed from the voter rolls. DBT, a company now owned by Choice Point of Atlanta, compiled the list. DBT was paid $4.3 million for its work, replacing a firm that charged $5,700 per year for the same service. Independent researchers contend that at a minimum, 90% of the 57,700 people scrubbed from the Florida voting rolls were completely innocent of any crime. The vast majority of those voters were registered African American Democrats. Bush won the Florida election by 527 votes. Attempts to conduct recounts were further obstructed. PNAC member John Bolton was further involved. "I'm with the Bush-Cheney team, and I'm here to stop the recount." Those were the words John Bolton yelled as he burst into a Tallahassee library on Saturday, December 9th, 2000, where local election officials were recounting ballots cast in Florida's disputed presidential race. Additionally, the impromptu riot, which shut down the recount in Miami-Dade County, has been proven to be the work of Republican operatives as well. Upon being appointed to the presidency by the United States Supreme Court in the most highly contested presidential election in U.S. history, in which members of PNAC played influential roles, the countdown to 9/11 began. In Florida, where PNAC member Jeb Bush was governor, 2 of the terrorists were training to fly commercial jets, despite the fact that we now know that a secret Pentagon program called Able Danger had them under heavy surveillance. On July 25, 2000, the Drug Enforcement Agency in Orlando discovered more than 43 pounds of heroin inside a Learjet owned by Wally Hilliard, the owner of Huffman Aviation, where the terrorists trained. Inexplicably, Wally Hilliard never served any jail time, despite the 43 pounds of heroin found in his privately owned jet. In news reports, authorities called it the biggest seizure of heroin in the history of Central Florida. Muhammad Atta, one of the terrorists enrolled there, was also enrolled as a student at the International Officers School at Maxwell Air Force Base, and witnesses recall having him being introduced around at an officers' club party. How could a terrorist listed on several terrorist watch lists, including the FBI, CIA, and the secret Pentagon Able Danger program, be enrolled in a U.S. Air Force school? Anyway, Wally Hilliard, who previously had been caught by the Drug Enforcement Agency with 43 pounds of heroin, purchased the Huffman Flight School just months before Atta and the other hijackers began arriving. Before their purchase, the flight school catered to largely American students. After Hilliard's purchase, the student body became 80% foreign, mostly Middle Eastern. Yeslam bin Laden, Osama bin Laden's brother, sent students there for his business. It's a small world, isn't it? Hilliard's business partner at Huffman, Rudy Deckers, was repeatedly threatened by the city of Venice with eviction for not paying rent. The money he was making from training Atta and other terrorists apparently went into the improbable scheme of launching a statewide airline, a venture that won high praise from passengers Governor Jeb Bush and State Secretary Katherine Harris. Meanwhile, in San Diego, 2 hijackers were living openly, despite their identities already being known to the CIA and FBI as known al-Qaeda operatives. In September 2000, the 2 moved into the home of a tested undercover asset who had been working closely with the FBI office in San Diego on terrorism cases. This FBI asset was identified in wire reports as a retired professor of English at San Diego State, as well as Vice President for International Projects at American Commonwealth University. Fact: this known FBI asset never taught at San Diego State, nor had he been a professor of English, and possesses a phony PhD from a bogus diploma mill run by people with U.S. military and intelligence connections. And the university for which he has said to be a vice president for international projects does not, in fact, exist. It is merely a mail drop. American Commonwealth University was previously named William Lyon University, named and founded for retired Air Force General William Lyon, a bigwheel in California Republican circles as chairman of the GOP's Team California Victory 2004, and a member of a group of wealthy, high-powered Orange County's Republicans called the New Majority. So, to summarize, an FBI informant housed at least 2 of the 9/11 terrorists and worked for a non-existent university with Republican and military intelligence connections. That's not suspicious, right? So how did these known terrorists get into the United States in the first place? 15 of the September 11th hijackers were Saudis here on visas they obtained from the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia. 3 of them without even being interviewed by a consular official. The Visa Express program was started in June 2001 by U.S. Embassy officials in Saudi Arabia, which allowed visas to be given out without interviews or background checks being conducted from Saudi Arabia, a country with a large population known to be sympathetic to Osama bin Laden. The Visa Express program, which was initiated 3 months before 9/11, was only introduced in Saudi Arabia, and no such privileges were extended to any of our other allies or European friends. Deputy Secretary of State and PNAC member Richard Armitage rejected recommendations from the Justice Department's Foreign Terrorist Tracking Task Force to deny some visas. And I quote, "Unfortunately, the information we have received from Foreign Terrorist Tracking Task Force so far has been insufficient to permit a consular officer to deny a visa," he wrote. "The information we have received states only that the FTTTF believes the applicants may pose a threat to national security." Yeah, that's right. Only a threat to national security. That's all. And then there was the strange case of FBI agent Robert Wright, who claimed that the Bureau blocked terrorism investigations. He sued the FBI for blocking his attempt to tell the public the truth. Prior to September 11th, J.W. Client and Chicago FBI Special Agent Robert Wright tried to launch a criminal investigation of terrorist financial networks in the United States. His supervisors blocked his efforts, refusing to allow him to pursue his investigations. According to the complaint filed by Agent Wright, FBI management intentionally and repeatedly thwarted and obstructed Agent Wright's attempts to launch a more comprehensive investigation that would identify the terrorists, their sources and methods of funding before they attacked additional U.S. interests and killing more U.S. citizens. In January 2001, Wright is told that an active investigation is being closed and that it's just better to let sleeping dogs lie. Wright tells ABC, "Those dogs weren't sleeping, they were training, and they were getting ready." In May 2002, he delivered a tearful press conference at the National Press Club describing his lawsuit against the FBI for deliberately curtailing investigations that might have prevented the 9/11 attacks. He used the words prevented, thwarted, obstructed, threatened, intimidated, and retaliation to describe the actions of his superiors in blocking his attempts to shut off money flows to Al-Qaeda. In another strange example of obstruction, Minneapolis FBI agent Colleen Rowley's whistleblowing about the FBI, ignoring warnings of the September 11th terrorist attacks, made her Time magazine's Co-Person of the Year. From the Associated Press. An FBI whistleblower alleges that FBI headquarters rewrote Minneapolis agents' pre-September 11th request for surveillance and search warrants for terrorism defendant Zacarias Moussaoui and removed important information before rejecting them, government officials said Friday. Agent Rowley wrote that the Minneapolis agents became so frustrated that they began to joke that FBI headquarters was becoming an unwitting accomplice to Osama bin Laden's efforts to attack the United States. The FBI supervisor who allegedly hamstrung the pre-September 11th Minneapolis investigation into the alleged 20th hijacker has been transferred to a position where Bureau sources say he'd actually have more authority. Michael Maltby, the FBI supervisor's special agent accused of blocking field agents from obtaining a warrant to search Zacarias Moussaoui's computer, has been moved out of the Counterterrorism Division at Bureau headquarters to the Cleveland office, where he'll work as a field supervisor. That's really a promotion, a Bureau veteran told WorldNet Daily, because a field supervisor is a big notch over a headquarters supervisor.
And then there was the case of of Special Agent Harry Sammet,
who claims he warned the agency about a possible terror plot dozens of times. In depth tonight, here's NBC's Lisa Daniels.
Yeah, hi. I'm on the 106th floor of the World Trade Center. We just had an explosion up here.
This week, emergency calls from 9/11 were released, while families of the victims wait for the jury to decide Zacarias Moussaouy's fate. Especially troubling to intelligence experts, the testimony of FBI Special Agent Harry Sammet, who said he warned his superiors over 70 times that Moussaoui was planning a terrorist attack. In this memo to FBI headquarters dated August 18th of 2001, Sammet accuses Moussaoui of plotting international terrorism and air piracy over the U.S.
And then there is the strange case of Sibel Edmonds. Sibel Edmonds, a translator for the FBI, has had more government gag orders placed on her than anyone in the history of the United States. But what she has said is damning. I saw papers that show U.S. knew Al-Qaeda would attack cities with airplanes. I gave the commission details of specific investigation files, the specific dates, the specific target information, specific managers in charge of the investigation. I gave them everything so that they could go back and follow up. This is not hearsay. These are things that are documented. These things can be established very easily. The 9/11 Commission failed to mention Sibel Edmonds in their final report. But perhaps the most startling revelations have only recently been made public. In August 2005, an Army intelligence officer told staff members from the September 11th Commission that a secret military unit had identified 2 of the 3 cells involved in the 2001 terrorist strikes more than a year before the attacks. Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer, a Bronze Star recipient who said he was associated with the Able Danger Unit, said that during 2003, a meeting in Afghanistan, he mentioned that the unit had identified September 11th ringleader Mohammed Atta, along with 3 other hijackers. Schaefer said Able Danger identified Atta and 3 other September 11th hijackers in 2000, but that military lawyers stopped the unit from sharing the information with the FBI. This is the story of Able Danger. Members of a U.S. Army intelligence unit tasked with assembling information about Al-Qaeda prepared a chart that included the names and photographs of 4 future hijackers, who they have identified as members of an Al-Qaeda-based cell in Brooklyn, New York. The members of the intelligence unit called Able Danger present their chart at the headquarters of the U.S. military's Special Operations Command, or SOCOM, in Tampa, Florida, with a recommendation that the FBI should be called in to take out the Al-Qaeda cell. Lawyers working for SOCOM argue that the information about the Al-Qaeda cell cannot be shared with the FBI. The legal team directs them to put yellow stickers over the photographs of Mohammed Atta and the other cell members to symbolize that they are off limits. Lieutenant Colonel Schaefer later says that an unnamed 2-star general above him is very adamant about not looking further at Atta. I was directed several times to ignore Atta, to the point where he had to remind me he was a general and I was not, and I would essentially be fired. Military leaders at the meeting take the side of the lawyers and prohibit any sharing of information about the Al-Qaeda cell. Upon taking this information to the 9/11 Commission, the Commission failed to include any of this information in their investigation. According to Schaefer, relevant documents are now missing. Shortly after talking to the 9/11 Commission, there were some issues going on about the documentation. Right now, as it stands this minute, to my knowledge, the documentation I had, we don't know where it is. As a result of these revelations, Schaefer had his security clearance lifted over a dispute over mileage reimbursement and charges for personal phone calls on a work cell phone. Schaefer was an active Army major who has been placed on administrative leave as a result of a phone bill and a gas bill for under $100.
This is an attempt to prevent the American people from knowing the facts about how we could have prevented 9/11, and people are covering it up today. And they're ruining the career of a military officer to do it. And we can't let it stand. I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican, you can't let a lieutenant colonel's career be ruined because of some bureaucrat in the Defense Intelligence Agency. If we let that happen, then no one that wears the uniform will ever feel protected.
Why would the Defense Intelligence Agency want to destroy the reputation, as you point out, a decorated career member of the United States military?
Those DIA officials are still in the agency. They're still there working, and they don't want Tony Shaffer to tell the truth. They don't want Commander Scott Philpott to tell the truth, because they're then going to have to answer the question, why did you ignore this? Why did you not take appropriate steps? Why did this information not be passed to the FBI? Louis Freeh this past Sunday said on Meet the Press that if it had the Able Danger information, the FBI could have stopped the hijackings. That's Louis Freeh saying that this past Sunday.
In September of 2005, Republican Congressman Curt Weldon gave a press conference on Able Danger. I'm Curt Weldon, and I'm here to provide a response to the 9/11 Commission in their statements this week about Able Danger and the outrageous statement made by Slade Gorton that it just didn't exist. And it is absolutely outrageous, especially from a commission that I supported that spent $15 million with 80 staffers to give the American people and the Congress a full and complete understanding of what happened prior to 9/11. They have maintained there is no information about Able Danger or the data mining work. They couldn't find anything. It's absolutely unbelievable to me that a commission will come out and say that this program just didn't exist. The Pentagon has acknowledged now publicly that they have identified 5 defense employees who either vividly remember identifying Muhammad Atta prior to 9/11 or seeing his name linked with a Brooklyn cell prior to 9/11. But the person who has not been brought out in the public yet, this person who will testify that he was actually the one who destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data about Able Danger. That included the Brooklyn cell and Muhammad Atta. Now, I'm not a computer expert. I don't know what 2.5 terabytes of data are, but if you can believe this, told him that it's basically 1/4 of all the printed material that the Library of Congress has in their collection. Now that's a lot of material. So what we will have here is a person who will testify under oath on the record that in the summer of 2000 he was ordered, where he would lose his job and or go to jail if he didn't comply, he was ordered to destroy 2.5 terabytes of data specific to Able Danger, the Brooklyn cell, and Muhammad Atta. Where is the media on this? These revelations are being made by a United States congressman on the floor of the House of Representatives, and the media is not covering it? Congressman Weldon has called for a criminal investigation into what he says is the most important story of our lifetime.
Michael Jackson has given investigators a DNA sample. They raided his Neverland Ranch twice over the past 2 days. The singer is facing child molestation and conspiracy charges. And join me, please, at 10 o'clock Eastern tonight. We are going to cover the penalty phase of the Scott Peterson case in Rap Sheet. Also, what you can learn from supermodel Heidi Klum. She has decided to write a book. You're going to meet her at 10 o'clock Eastern. Right now, CNN presents Nuclear Terror.
We're in a lot of trouble because you people and 62 million other Americans are listening to me right now, because less than 3% of you people read books, because less than 15% of you read newspapers, because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. Right now, there is an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube is the gospel, the ultimate revelation. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome goddamn force in the whole godless world. And woe is us if it ever falls into the hands of the wrong people. And when the 12th largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this network. So you listen to me. Listen to me. Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So if you want the truth, go to God. Go to your gurus. Go to yourselves. Because that's the only place you're ever going to find any real truth. But man, you're never going to get any truth from us. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We lie like hell. We'll tell you that Kojak always gets the killer and that nobody ever gets cancer in Archie Bunker's house. And no matter how much trouble the hero is in, don't worry, just look at your watch. At the end of the hour, he's going to win. We'll tell you any shit you want to hear. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
For God's sake, don't touch me. Dad, what's wrong with the telly?
Good evening, London. Allow me first to apologize for this emergency channel. I do, like many of you, appreciate the comforts of the everyday routine, the security of the familiar, the tranquility of repetition. Bloody hell. I enjoy them as much as any bloke. But in the spirit of commemoration, whereby those important events of the past, usually associated with someone's death or the end of some awful bloody struggle, are celebrated with a nice holiday, I thought we could mark this November the 5th, a day that is sadly no longer remembered, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat. There are, of course, those who do not want us to speak, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there? How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you. I want to ask you a question, Dominic. I don't care if you answer me or not. I just want to say this aloud. And I need to know that this question will not leave this office.
Yeah, of course, Inspector. Because of the terrorist.
No.
What is it, Chief? What's going on?
The question I want to ask is about St. Mary's and Three Waters. The question that's kept me up for the last 24 hours, the question I have to ask is, what if the worst horrifying biological attack in this country's history was not the work of religious extremists.
Well, I don't understand. We know it was.
And maybe that's really what happened. When I see this chain of events, these coincidences, and I have to ask, what if that isn't what happened? What if someone else unleashed that virus? What if someone else killed all those people? Would you really want to know who it was?
Sure.
Even if it was someone working for this government? That's my question. If our own government was responsible for what happened at St. Mary's and Three Waters, if our own government was responsible for the deaths of almost 100,000 people, do you really want to know? 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 Do you really want to know?
I heard there was an attack on the Jedi Temple. You can see the smoke from here.
I'm fine. I came to see if you and the baby are safe.
What's happening?
The Jedi have tried to overthrow the Republic.
I can't believe that.
The Senate is expected to vote more executive powers to the Chancellor today.
I think this war is destroying the principles of the Republic.
Have you ever considered that we may be on the wrong side?
What do you mean?
What if the democracy we thought we were serving no longer exists? And the Republic has become the very evil we've been fighting to destroy?
I don't believe that. And you're sounding like a separatist.
In order to ensure the security and continuing stability, the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy! If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
He was deceived by a lie. We all were. It appears that the Chancellor is behind everything, including the war.
I don't believe you. I can't.
In late 2005, headlines widely reported that a Washington, D.C. lobbyist with heavy Republican ties pleaded guilty to fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to bribe public officials. Abramoff's chief claim to fame was as the proud owner of the Sun Cruise Line, a dozen unlicensed gambling boats plying the waters off the Florida coast in a fashion which in any other state would have been considered criminal. Florida's Cruises to Nowhere represent the largest unregulated gambling industry in the United States, said Bill Thompson, a professor of gambling at the University of Nevada. Unlicensed gambling boats have long been a favorite vehicle of organized crime and money laundering operations. The Sun Cruise line was owned by a Gus Bolas, a Greek tycoon and owner of the Miami Sub restaurant chain. 3 men, including Jack Abramoff, formed an ownership group that apparently made Gus an offer he couldn't refuse. They bought Sun Cruise from him, even though it wasn't for sale. Gus Bolas was gunned down in his BMW on February 6, 2001. Abramoff is accused of faking a wire transfer of $23 million, the equity they had agreed to put into the purchase of Sun Cruise. The wire transfer was counterfeit. The defendants never transferred the funds and never made a cash equity contribution towards the purchase of Sun Cruise. After the sale, Bolas retained a piece of the business, but relations among the partners quickly soured. According to lawsuits and bankruptcy records, Bolas accused Abramoff partner Adam Kaddan of maintaining connections to organized crime, and he and Kaddan came to blows during a business meeting. On February 6, 2001, Bolas was killed as he drove home from a business meeting by someone in a black Mustang who fired 3 hollow point bullets into his chest. No one has been arrested in the slaying. Bolas was in a BMW, was driving down a quiet side street after an evening meeting at his Fort Lauderdale office when a car slowed to a stop in front of him. A second car boxed the BMW in from behind. Then a dark Mustang appeared from the opposite direction. The Mustang's driver pulled alongside and pumped 3 hollow point bullets into the BMW driver's chest. Shortly after Abramoff purchased the ships, Abramoff leased a corporate jet to ferry Republican congressional staffers down to Tampa for the 2001 Super Bowl and to gamble aboard a Sun Cruise ship. And then, on September 26, 2001, the Associated Press reported that several employees of the Sun Cruise line recognized Muhammad Atta and 2 other hijackers as frequent guests on the Sun Cruise line. Associated Press, Sun Cruise Casinos has turned over photographs and other documents to FBI investigators after employees said they recognized some of the men suspected in the terrorist attacks as customers. Names on a passenger list from a September 5th cruise matched those of the hijackers. So to summarize, 6 days before the attacks of 9/11, 3 of the hijackers were consuming alcohol and gambling aboard a boat purchased by a Republican bigwig lobbyist. We can only assume that this is how strict religious Islamic fanatics celebrate 6 days before committing suicide: consuming alcohol, gambling, and according to the 9/11 Commission report, making trips to strip clubs in Las Vegas. On September 10th, a full 8 hours before the attacks on 9/11, San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown received a phone call from what he described as airport security warning him not to fly. To this day, Willie Brown has not identified the source of this call. San Francisco International Airport claims that no travel advisories were in effect on September 10th. And it was reported in Newsweek just days after the attacks. Newsweek has learned that the state of alert has been high during the past 2 weeks, and a particularly urgent warning may have been received the night before the attacks, causing some top Pentagon brass to cancel a trip. On September 10th, Newsweek has learned a group of top Pentagon officials subtly canceled travel plans for the next morning.
apparently because of security concerns. In response to inquiries from CBS News over why Ashcroft was traveling exclusively by leased jet instead of commercial airlines, the Justice Department cited what is called a threat assessment by the FBI and said Ashcroft has been advised to travel only by private jet. And from the London Times, the author Salman Rushdie believes that U.S. authorities knew of an imminent terrorist attack when they banned him from flying on September 3rd. The FAA told the author's publisher that U.S. intelligence had given warning of something out there, but failed to give any further details. In the days leading up to 9/11, an unprecedented number of put options were placed on United and American Airlines. A put option is basically a bet that the value of a particular stock will go down. Of course, immediately following the attacks of 9/11, the value of United and American Airlines stock plummeted. This unusually high number of put options were only placed on United and American Airlines. No similar trading in other airlines occurred on the Chicago Exchange in the days immediately preceding Black Tuesday. Even more suspicious, investors have yet to collect more than $2.5 million in profits they made trading options in the stock of United Airlines before the September 11th terrorist attacks. Who would not collect $2.5 million in profits? The firm used to place the put options on United Airlines stock was managed by the number 3 executive director position at the Central Intelligence Agency, A.B. Buzzy Krongard, chairman of the investment bank A.B. Brown. A.B. Brown, one of 20 major U.S. banks named by Senator Carl Levin this year as being connected to money laundering. Krongard's last position at Bankers Trust was to oversee private client relations. In this capacity, he directed hands-on relations with some of the wealthiest people in the world in a kind of specialized banking operation that has been identified by the U.S. Senate and other investigations as being closely connected to the laundering of drug money. As to September 11th, federal authorities have told ABC News they have now tracked more than $100,000 from banks in Pakistan to 2 banks in Florida to accounts held by suspected hijack ringleader Muhammad Atta. As well, Time magazine is reporting that some of that money came in the days just before the attack and can be traced directly to people connected to Osama bin Laden. It's all part of what has been a successful FBI effort so far to close in on the hijackers' high command, the money men, the planners, and the mastermind. The Wall Street Journal was one of the only Western news organizations to follow up on the story, citing the Times of India. U.S. authorities sought General Mahmoud Ahmad's removal after confirming the fact that $100,000 was wired to World Trade Center hijacker Muhammad Atta from Pakistan by Ahmad Umar Sheikh at the insistence of General Mahmoud. Sheikh rose to prominence with the 2002 killing of Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl, who at the time was in Pakistan investigating connections between the ISI and Islamic militant groups. In a prophetic article published on September 10th, one day before the attacks, ISI Chief Lieutenant General Mahmoud's week-long presence in Washington has triggered speculation about the agenda of his mysterious meetings at the Pentagon and National Security Council. Official sources confirm that he met Tenet this week. He also held long parleys with unspecified officials at the White House and the Pentagon. On the morning of September 11th, General Mahmoud Ahmad, the alleged money man behind the 9/11 hijackers, was at a breakfast meeting on Capitol Hill, posted by Senator Bob Graham and Representative Portegas, both from Florida, respectively chairmen of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees.
Graham and Goss would subsequently become the chairman of the 9/11 Joint Inquiry. In the months before 9/11, over 23 warnings of coming attacks from 11 foreign governments were received and ignored, many specifically mentioning the use of planes and symbolic urban targets. In the months prior to 9/11, CIA Director George Tenet was so outspoken in warning about the possibility of an al-Qaeda attack that he was described by former White House aide Richard Clarke as having his hair on fire when he briefed National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice in June of 2001. On July 5th of 2001, the CIA briefed Attorney General Ashcroft, warning that a significant terrorist attack is imminent and a strike could occur at any time. On this day, Acting FBI Director Tom Pickard briefs Ashcroft about the terror threat inside the U.S. Pickard later swears under oath that Ashcroft tells him, "I do not want to hear about this anymore." August 22nd, 2001, John O'Neill, considered the FBI's leading authority on al-Qaeda, resigns from the FBI. He says it is because of repeated obstruction of his investigations into al-Qaeda. Following his resignation, he is offered a job as the head of security for the World Trade Center. On September 10th, he moves into his new office on the 34th floor of the North Tower. That night, he tells colleague Jerry Hauer, "We're due for something big." O'Neill is killed the next day in 9/11 attacks. On August 6, 2001, President Bush is given a memo entitled "Bin Laden Determined to Strike in the U.S." There was no further discussion before September 11th among the president and his top advisors of the possibility of a threat of an al-Qaeda attack in the United States. On Friday, September 7th, 2001, Jeb Bush, governor of Florida, signs Florida Executive Order number 01261. His Florida Executive Order places the Florida National Guard, which is not a lawful militia, a unit of the federal U.S. Army, in control of all Florida law enforcement. Why did fighter jets fail to scramble from Andrews Air Force Base, with the skies over Washington, D.C. remaining virtually unprotected a full 85 minutes after the first of multiple planes were known to be hijacked? The first reports of a hijacking took place at approximately 8:15. 30 minutes later, the first tower was hit. 45 minutes later, the second tower was hit. The media began reporting that possibly as many as 8 planes were unaccounted for and possibly hijacked. Approximately 65 minutes later, Vice President Dick Cheney was moved to an underground bunker as members of the Secret Service reported that a plane was possibly headed for Washington, D.C. An astounding 85 minutes later, at 9:40, the Pentagon was struck. Andrews Air Force Base, charged with defending the nation's capital, was only 11 miles away from the Pentagon and failed to scramble one fighter jet. In the first 9 months of 2001, the Air Force scrambled jets 67 times in response to relatively minor anomalies, including deviated flight plans, loss of radio contact, loss of transponder signal, or unruly passengers. It is standard protocol for NORAD to scramble jets given these scenarios. Yet on 9/11, standard protocol was not followed. And then there is this report from the New York Times. At least 6 air traffic controllers who dealt with 2 of the hijacked airliners on September 11, 2001, made a tape recording that same day describing the events. But the tape was destroyed by a supervisor without anyone making a transcript
or even listening to it, the Transportation Department said in a report today. It was later destroyed by an FAA official describing the report as a quality assurance manager. That manager crushed the cassette in his hand, shredded the tape, and dropped the pieces into different trash cans around the building. Now that's not too suspicious, is it? And in a bizarre so-called coincidence on the morning of September 11th, the CIA was running an alleged simulation to explore the emergency response issues that would be created if a plane were to strike a building. Less than an hour before the World Trade Center attacks, Donald Rumsfeld told a congressional delegation that a shocking event would occur soon. I had said at 8 o'clock breakfast, sometime in the next 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 months, there would be an event that would occur in the world that would be sufficiently shocking that would remind people, again, how important it is to have a strong, healthy Defense Department. The section of the Pentagon that was struck was the only section of the Pentagon that had been renovated and was able to withstand more of an impact. What luck! The plane happened to hit the section of the Pentagon that had just been reinforced and evacuated. The renovation program included the following improvements to the building. Exterior walls had been reinforced with steel, exterior walls backed with Kevlar, and blast-resistant windows had been installed.
I don't think anybody anticipated the breach of the levees.
The Federal Aviation Administration records show Hanjour, the pilot, alleged to have hit the Pentagon, obtained a commercial pilot's license in April 1999. But how and where he did so remains a lingering question that FAA officials refuse to discuss. Air traffic controllers watching the plane that struck the Pentagon remarked, "The speed, the maneuverability, the way that he turned, we all thought in the radar room, all of us experienced air traffic controllers, that was a military plane," says O'Brien. But just as the plane seemed to be on a suicide mission into the White House, the unidentified pilot, Hanjour, executed a pivot so tight that it reminded observers of a fighter jet maneuver. The plane circled 270 degrees to the right to approach the Pentagon from the west and struck the one renovated, reinforced, and evacuated section of the Pentagon. According to the Washington Post, aviation sources said that the plane was flown with extraordinary skill, making it highly likely that a trained pilot was at the helm. Yet, according to Hanjour's flight instructors, they found he had trouble controlling and landing the single-engine Cessna 172. In fact, in 2001, he was using a Boeing 737 simulator. Because his performance struck his flight instructors as substandard, they discouraged Hanjour from continuing.
According to Michael Meacher, it is clear the U.S. authorities did little or nothing to preempt the events of 9/11. It is known that at least 11 countries provided advance warning to the U.S. of the 9/11 attacks. It is not surprising that some have seen the U.S. failure to avert the 9/11 attacks as creating an invaluable pretext for attacking Afghanistan in a war that was clearly already planned in advance. Paul Heller, former National Defense Minister of Canada. As a former Minister of National Defense, when the news came out, I had to wonder, why did airplanes fly around for an hour and a half without interceptors being scrambled from Andrews Air Force Base? Why did the president just sit in the schoolroom when he heard the 9/11 news? Why did he not acknowledge that he already knew what was going on? Andreas von Bülow, former German intelligence minister. Pearl Harbor was not a surprise to the American government, only to the American people, and 9/11 is just another Pearl Harbor. War was prepared long before the terror acts of 9/11. Getting to the bottom of this crime begins with questioning the official theory. Dr. Robert Bowman, a United States Air Force colonel and director of the Institute for Space and Security Studies. The U.S. government at the highest levels may have committed treason and mass murder by purposely allowing 9/11 to happen.
Get ready. Go, and go. Yes, the catch go. Fingers on the first word of the story. Get ready to read the story the fast way. Get ready. Go, girl, and go. Go on. She likes to go running with her tail. Go on. She plays with her tail. Try it again. Get ready for the beginning of that sentence. Get ready. She plays with her goat in her house. Go on.
favorite dreams of you still wash ashore, scraping through my head till I don't wanna sleep anymore.
We're going to vote tomorrow, and I'm afraid that when we go to the well, that too many of my colleagues are not going to understand that this appointment is very, very important to our country. At a strategic time when we need friends all over the world, we need somebody up there that's going to be able to get the job done. And I know some of my friends say, "Oh, let it go, George, it's going to work out." I don't want to take the risk. I came back here and ran for a second term because I'm worried about my kids and my grandchildren. And I just hope my colleagues will take the time and before they get to this well, do some serious thinking about whether or not we should send John Bolton to the United Nations. I yield the floor.
I want to share with you a quote from a very high leader, and you can tell me who it is. Quote, "An evil exists that threatens every man, woman, and child in this great nation. We must take steps to ensure our domestic security and protect our homeland." Who is it? Hitler. Yeah, you guys are good. Adolf Hitler. When did he say this? When he was establishing the Gestapo. Okay? Now why do I mention that? Because we're a baby step away from the establishment of the Gestapo.
Though it all looks different now, I know it's still the same. Everywhere I look, you're all I see. Just a fading fucking reminder of who I used to be. Come on, tell me you make this all go away. You make this all go away. I'm down to just one thing, and I'm starting to scare myself. You make this all go away. You make it all go away. I just want something. I just want something I can never have. I just want something I can never have.
Out of the sorrow of September 11th, I see opportunity.